Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, folks, Big Paul here today, and I'm going to take you through my last two off seasons and my last two contest preps with some cruises in here to show you how I prepared for my national shows and eventually got my IFBB Pro Card. I'm going to go through all my cycles and the logic behind it. I think, I don't know, so I did my 2021 show, which was my first show back competing after a long break. And I was like 185 on stage. I was emaciated. I'm not, I have other videos up about that rebound and how I put on the 60 pounds or whatever in that off season. If you want to go back through and find the old videos about that, you can watch that. But this is really leading up after my DC Pro-Am show, which was in June of 2022, where I won the over 35 class and the over 40 class in masters at that show and qualified for a national show. And this is really, I just kind of wanted to take you through and show you what two full off seasons into contest preps look like going into those shows and how I went from, I think my first, at DC Pro-Am, I was something like 225 on stage, 224. And I worked my way up to around 250 on stage at Masters Nationals, which was this past July. So it's recent, July 2024, in case this video ages. But I'm going to go through all that. I'm going to show you how I progressed, what my cycles look like, what my logic was for it. I apologize if I seem short of breath and my voice is scratchy and my nose is stuffed up. I'm getting over a cold. I had the Olympia flu. Everybody we went to the Olympia with got sick, so just bear with me on this one. That's why I haven't made this video sooner. I was going to do it last week, but I was in no condition to do it. And we're going to dig into all this in just 1 second. All right, before we get started, I want to make a quick plug for the Science of Performance Enhancing Drugs and Anabolics e-course that Kurt Havens and I have up. There's over 100 modules in it and also something like 50 to 60 hours of video. So if you want to learn more about the logic behind how I build cycles and why I constructed my cycles the way I have, you can go there and learn more there. Plus, Kurt is a wealth of information, one of the most knowledgeable people out there on the internet when in regards to PEDs. I also have my Team Anabolic Bodybuilding members site up as well. It's like 30 something a month where you can ask me questions. It's sometimes weekly, but several times a month I do live Q&A. I have a bank of videos up there where you can go through that members have access to. There's also a forum where you can post questions and get support and help from other members and myself. I go through and try to answer all questions that are on that board. So if you want access to ask me questions, you can do so there. It's affordable. Anyway, enough of the plugs. Let's dig into the cycles, the stuff that you're really here for. All right, so we're going to start off at the beginning of 2023. This was really my ramp up into Masters USA's, which was in Anaheim, California. It took place around Thanksgiving of 2023. So I'm going to show you what my cruise looked like leading into my off-season mass phase and then contest prep for that show. So you can see here at the beginning of January, I did the DC Pro-Am, as I mentioned before, earlier in 2022. It was in June of 2022. So I did a rebound and I did the off season, and then I decided to take a break. I wanted to start here at 2023. I didn't feel like it was worth rehashing the whole 60-pound rebound that I had after my first show where I was 185 pounds, my first show back, where I was 185 pounds in 2021. There's other videos up about that if you want to go back there and check that out. as you can see here on the screen, in my cycle on this portion, when I started off 2023, I was only running 125 milligrams a test. I know there's going to be some people that call bullshit on this, say I'm full of crap, that I'm lying. Whatever you want to believe, that's fine. The reason I did this is because I pressed pretty hard in 2022, and I wanted to give my body a break, let my health markers come back to some sort of homeostasis, get my body ready and rested to do a hard push for the 2023 Masters USAs, where I was going to do an off season leading into it. And you'll see here how things went. I started off with, like I said, 125 milligrams a test, 5 units of GH. I ran that all the way from January up until the beginning of April, where I started my off-season cycle. This off-season cycle, I came out of the gate planning on running test, nandrolone, and primo. I've always had good luck with that combination. I found that that's what made me grow the best in the past, with the least amount of side effects. Now, there are things you can do to be more aggressive. If you wanted to run Anadrol and Tran and do all these other things, you certainly could be more aggressive. But I'm an older guy. I know how I respond to these compounds, and I thought it was probably just smarter just to do this. I like to taper up my cycles typically, start from a lower dose and just kind of move up, get the most out of the least, and save the gas for when I need it. I also find that if I taper up into the higher doses, that I don't get all the nasty side effects that you do at the beginning of cycles, like water retention, blood pressure elevation, acne, whatever the other side effects that you have to deal with. So you can see here, I started off 375 test, 150 nandrolone, 300 primo for 825 total low with 5 units of GH. And 25, I was running 25 units of Lantus and Humalog on high days at that point. Typically, I don't run the Lantus on low days. And you can see here, I ramped up from, in about 3 weeks in, I went to 500 and 300 nandrolone and 400 primo. And then 5 weeks in, I went to 750 tests, 300 nandrolone, 600 primo. And then you can see here at week 7, I dropped the nandrolone. Now, the reason I dropped the nandrolone is because I started getting crazy anxiety. Started getting panic attacks. I noticed my gyno was flaring up. I don't know why. I've never had issues with nandrolone ever before. Never once had issues. And then just all of a sudden, this cycle, it was wreaked hell on me. I had all sorts of problems. So I dropped it. I don't continue to run stuff in the off season, particularly if it makes me feel like dog shit. You know, when you're 20-something years old, whatever, I guess you can deal with those side effects. But me, as an old man, I don't want to feel like shit when I'm on cycle. If I feel like shit, I don't want to train. If I feel like shit, I don't sleep well. If I feel like shit, my motivation goes away. So I run stuff that I feel good on. I upped the GH to 8 units. So when I dropped that, you can see here, I took the test up to 1,000 and then 700 primo. And then at week 9, I hit 1,250 test, 1,000 primo. At week 11, I hit 1,500 test and 1,200 primo. I was up at 2,700 milligrams total and 9 units of GH. I believe I was running Serostim at that time. Usually when you see 9 on here, that means I'm running Serostim. Or some combination of Serostim and generic. But there's the whole generic versus pharma debate. I've run both. It could be all in my head. That it could be in my head that there's nothing really additionally going on with the Serostim, but I don't know. I don't like to leave anything to chance. if I'm trying to get a pro card, if I'm on the cusp of a pro card, I'm going to run the best stuff I can get my hands on. If I want the best results, I'm going to run the best stuff I can get my hands on. If I didn't give a fuck about the best results, then whatever. Run generics. That's it for that debate for me. I went up to 1,500 tests and 1,200 primo for a bit. But then I noticed that my estrogen was crashed. So I had to back off. I had to back off the primo bits. And I took it back down by the end of the cycle, which ended at 17. Or sorry, this is incorrect. It should be 19. This thing's goofy on the math. I think I went out to 18 weeks. Here we go. There we go. Now it is correct. I went to 18 weeks on this cycle, and I finished up at 1,500 and 800 milligrams. 1,500 test, 800 milligrams of primo with 9 units of GH and 25 units of Lantus on medium days and Humalog and Lantus on high days. And you can see that's how I ended up. Now, why did I end up on lower doses than what I started? Because I had side effects. I used to like to map out my cycles and have them planned out for months in advance, but I just found out that never works. You always have to make judgments and reactions to how your body is handling the stuff. And I used to be a knucklehead and just stick things through, even though it didn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. So I figured out a long time ago, you can sort of have an outline of a plan, but you're going to have to adjust as you go, see how your body reacts. All right, moving on into the 2023 prep. You can see I did not do a cruise between the off season and the prep. I just went straight fucking in. You know, whether that was a good choice or not, I don't know. So I had the gas pedal pressed down for essentially, let's see here, 16 weeks, 18, 34 weeks straight. I was on blast. I started off, where did I finish up over here? 1,500 and 800. So I lowered the doses actually down a little bit for what it's worth. I came down to 1,800 starting the cycle off with 9 units of Serostem. I backed off. I mean, it's going to be goofy sounding, but I wanted to back off a little bit just to give, even though it's not like a cruise, but just to give my body a little bit of a break. Since I was at the beginning, really the first 4 weeks of contest prep for me, I really only prep hard for about 12 weeks because I don't need a full 16 weeks to get ready for shows. A lot of times I can be ready in like 8 to 10 weeks with the way my metabolism is. So I just kind of took a break for the first 4 weeks to let my body breathe a little bit. 1,000 test, 800 primo. And at 12 weeks out, we tossed in the Masteron and lowered the test. So 750 tests, 600 primo, 600 Masteron for 1,950 total and 9 units of Serostem. This is the contest prep going into 2024 Masters USAs. You can also see at 12 weeks out, I started my fat burners. I use the Go Pills from Troponin Nutrition, which is 200 milligrams of caffeine and 5 milligrams of yohimbine, and Broncaid, which is ephedrine, 25 milligrams a day. And I was just running 1 dose of those per day in the morning before my fasted cardio. Pretty much everything stayed the same here. Once again, Serostem. You can see here I was running Serostem up until 9 weeks out when I added in 20 milligrams of Tren a day. 20 milligrams of Tren a day hits me. I can't really run Tren. I didn't start the AI until 8 weeks out. I was running 0.5 milligram of anastrozole every other day. There's going to be people that are going to argue with me about this. I see this all the time about crushing your estrogen going into contest. But I can tell you, you don't get dry. You don't get hard. At least I don't. Most people I know, unless you absolutely nuke your estrogen going into the last part of contest prep. I just haven't seen it. I think John Jewett doesn't absolutely bury his estrogen, and he seems to get in shape. But I just have not had that work for me personally. There are other ways to do it. So essentially, I ran that 750 test, 600 Masteron, 140 Tren, 600 Primo for a total of 2,000. Pretty much all the way up. I don't know why it changes over here. It's 2,200. I don't see anything else that changed over here. Or 2,300. Whatever it works out to be. All the way up until the 10 days out from the show. And then when I drop my orals, I do use Clen. I actually didn't start running Clen until 6 weeks out from that show. I was already lean. And I ramped up to 80 micrograms of Clen. I didn't go super high. I ran tamoxifen at the end of the prep. You can see here, I have a little bit of gyno, and it's the only way I can get the gyno to dry up completely. You can see in my contest pictures from my shows that the gyno's, you don't see the gyno, it's gone. People always like to give me shit about my crazy nipple. It's just gyno. For orals running into that show, I maxed out 75 milligrams of Anavar and 20 milligrams of Halo going into the last 10 days. And then I tapered off the fat burners. I had thought about doing a rebound, but there was going to be that show I don't know where I placed. They don't tell you where you place, but I was in the finals for the overall. I won the super heavies. I feel like I was in the top 2 or 3. They had me up there with Chris and Juan, and we were swapping around. It was us 3 in the finals. I would say. I don't think there was really. All 3 of us have pro cards now, so let me just put it that way. So it was 3 of us. So I was out there in that group. You can see here I went to 10 units of GH just because I went back to generic. I run Serostem on contest prep. Sometimes I go back to the generics in the off season. I thought about doing a rebound, but there was just such a short break. I mean, really, it was 5 months until I was back into contest prep again. 4 months, whatever it is. I think 4 months when I started tapering back up into my contest prep. So I just ran a cruise. That 125 milligrams that I ran before was way too low, to be honest with you. Reflecting back on it, I felt like dog shit on 125 milligrams a test. And I probably would have run it higher, 250, 300, 375, something like that. Once you get bigger, you're going to need more. And I ran 10 units of GH and 250 milligrams of test all the way up until the end of February. So 1, 2, 3 months, 12-week cruise, essentially. Going into prep for Masters Nationals. I kept myself pretty lean that period of time. I didn't really put on much weight. Maybe I think I got 10 pounds over my contest weight. Something like that. I didn't get super heavy. And then we come into the 2024 contest prep where I won my pro card. So let's back this guy up. I really started my cycle 20 weeks out from the show. You can see here I started off with 500 test, 400 primo. Pretty mild. I was running 15 units of GH at that time. That was generic. I switched to Serostem at some point on the prep. 15 units of GH. It was, I don't want to name the brand, but it was the I forget what top it was. I don't know. Whatever generic works out to be 15. They're never exact. It was 14.7 units or some shit like that. So 229. That was the week before we went to the Arnold Classic last year. I started off 15 units, 500. And then you can see I did my typical taper up thing. I did a little bit different. I got more aggressive with my cycle going into this show. I did 500 test, 400 primo, 750 test, 400 primo. Then I added into the master on 1,000 test, 600 primo, 1,500 test, 400 master on, 400 primo, 1,750 test, 700, and 700 of each. I'll be honest with you, I think that's where I felt the best. Over the last 2 years where I was like kicking ass and taking names was at 750 test, 700 master on, 700 primo, and I wasn't running Lantus really here either because I was in a calorie deficit, didn't really need it. I let my blood sugars dictate what I need as far as that go. But I felt great on that dose. I did back it off a little bit. I came down to 1500. I started feeling a little lethargic with the test being that high. I tend to be a high estrogen converter in the past, but it's weird. Like my estrogen conversion seems to have come way down. I guess maybe because I'm leaner now and I'm bigger and I'm carrying more muscle. I don't know what the case is, but I don't seem to have problems with it like I used to. But you can see here, 1750. I brought that down to 1500, so for a total of 2900 with the load. I was running an AI. I ran 1 milligram of Arimidex every other day, going into this part of the cycle. And I did my typical thing where I start my fat burners at 12 weeks out. Just the same deal as the last time, the Go pills with some. I actually ended up dropping the Go pills. I don't remember. I should probably mark it on here, but I think I dropped them somewhere around here if I remember right. Because the Yohimbine made me feel like puking. And I just actually ran. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was. I think it was around here. It's like 6-7 weeks out. I ran it for a couple weeks and then I dropped it. And I went to just the Broncaid, only 1 per day. And clenbuterol is what I used for fat burners going into the show. No T3. Had a horrible experience with T3 on my first contest prep. T3 is great at burning fat, but it's also great at burning muscle. So it's a kick in the nuts like that. I ran exemestane up until I switched to exemestane. Justin suggested that. So I switched to exemestane and then I switched back to Arimidex. Why did I switch back to Arimidex? Because I ran out of exemestane. Simple as that. Simple as that. So really, you can see here at 8 weeks out, I tried Tren. I ran it for a week and a half. I have it on here for 2 weeks. I don't even think I made it a week, to be honest. A week and a half, something like that. I was running 25 milligrams a day. And I could not fucking sleep. Period. At all. And talking to Kurt, I think it's something to do with running Tren with a calorie deficit and stimulants that makes it worse. I've been playing with it a little bit in my off season now, just a tiny little bit. I'm running like 20-30 milligrams every other day just to see what happens. And I've been on it for a couple weeks now. Zero issue with the insomnia and all the other issues that I've had with Tren in the past. So who knows? But you can see here at week 11 where I go from 15 to 9 units. That was when I switched to Serostim. So I ran Serostim all the way into my show. Once again, sure, you can run generics. I run generics sometimes too. And, this is one I would debate with Dr. Todd. Dr. Todd and I have talked about it. He thinks there's no difference between generics and pharma. And he may well be right. I don't know. I feel different. Could be a placebo. Maybe it's not. But I will say this. If you have the money to spare, there's a pro card on the line, or in a Mr. Olympia contest, or a pro show win, you leave nothing to chance. You run the best stuff you can run. You eat the best food that you can eat. You use the best gym that you can use. If you have the budget. That's always the big factor. Pharma GH is expensive. So you're paying for peace of mind, essentially. It's like the difference between driving a Honda and a Mercedes. The Honda probably gets the job done fine, but maybe not with as much flair and style as the Mercedes. Just joking, folks. All right, so at 6 weeks out, I pretty much just settled in at It's playing around with doses. You can see I'm playing around with doses here. I settled in at 1,000 test, 1,000 Masteron, 1,000 Primo. At like 2 or 3 weeks out from my show, I dropped the test down to 500, and then I dropped it completely at 2 weeks out. And then we did the whole slamming the Winstraw thing going into the show. It's the first time I've ever tried this, where I went up to running 200 milligrams of Winstraw going into the show. I ran some Proviron as well. I just had some sitting around, so why the fuck not? I was just going to use it up. I was running 50 milligrams. I ramped up to 50 milligrams. Nothing crazy. But really, I ran 200 milligrams of Winstraw the last 10 days or so going into the show, where we pulled all the orals and then the Proviron in there as well. That's all I ran the last 10 days going into the show, along with the 9 units of GH, which I pulled out like 3 days out from the show. And we maxed out the exemestane. And then I think the night before the show, I hit some letrozole. Don't know if that makes any difference or not. We ran some diuretics at the end. Really can't have a prescription for the diuretics. 2 days out, I ran some aldactone and then used some hydrochlorothiazide the night before the show. Probably went a little too overboard with the hydrochlorothiazide. I had an electrolyte imbalance that made me feel not so good on the day of the show. And coming out of the show, this is something I tell my clients all the time not to fucking do. It's like the dumbest thing you can do after a show. But it's to come off everything cold turkey. I didn't even taper down the fat burners. Really not smart. I just came off everything completely. I was traveling, I was going on vacation, had some shit going on. That's the first time I've been truly off of everything in a long time. I lasted about 4 weeks, and I felt like absolute dog shit. My joints are screaming. I was worried about having an estrogen rebound, and at 4 weeks after the show, I went and got an estradiol test done, and my estrogen was like a 7 or 8 or something crazy like that. I don't remember the exact number, but it was completely fucking buried. And my joints were screaming. Did not feel good. I added the GH back in. I'm running generic now. Back on the generic now, and I just did like 300 tests, 200 Primo, or no, it was a Masteron. I wasn't running Primo, sorry. For some reason, I always say Primo. I was running 300 tests, 200 Masteron, just to kind of, as a cruise, a bodybuilding cruise, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And so I ran that all the way up until about 4 weeks ago, beginning of really, essentially the beginning of October. So I'm about 3 weeks into my blast now. I started, which right now is at 900 test, 600 EQ. I'm running EQ. Actually, I should change this. I went up to 18 units of GH. Sorry about that. This should be updated. I went from 9 up to 18 units. I'm running a full bottle of generic GH a day. I'll be honest with you, I can't feel any fucking difference between the 9 and the 18. So that does make me wonder about the generics. When I take 18 units of Serostem, I can't feel my fucking hands. Not that side effects are indicative of effects, but it makes you wonder. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. So I did add in last week. I've just been playing around with it. I just want to put it just sort of an experiment. There's really no purpose to this other than just an experiment. Kurt's been talking a lot about Tren and Anadrol being like kind of the holy grail run together for putting on size. Not that that's a very smart thing to do at my age. Probably shouldn't do that. So I ran just a little bit of Tren just to see how I feel. I'm about 10 days into it, just 30 milligrams every other day. I Feel great so far. No problems. I did try some Anadrol. I ran 50 milligrams of Anadrol for about 3 days. And I had the world's worst acid reflux after 3 days of running Anadrol. Couldn't do it. So the Anadrol is back in the drawer. I generally stay away from orals for the most part. You can see here, in a 2-year period of time, I've got like 7 weeks worth of oral use in 2 years. That's where I'm at with oral use. All right, folks. That's it. That's my last 2 years of cycles. Pro Card winning cycle. Pro Card winning off-season. Pro Card winning cruise. Some not so smart cruises. Things I probably would have done a little different for the cruises. I honestly now, I kind of like running a little primo or a little masteron with my cruise. Once again, I don't know, if you're a recreational bodybuilder, that's probably not the smartest approach. It's not really a cruise. It's kind of like a small cycle. Teeny cycle. Little baby cycle. I don't know if that's the smartest thing. If you're a recreational bodybuilder, you really should probably just come down to true TRT and only be running bioidentical hormones to give yourself a break, which I have done at points. But for the recreational bodybuilder, that's probably what you do. But for the competitive bodybuilder that's trying to hang on to size, you might need a little more spice between. As long as blood work's okay, it's probably okay. But if you wanted to be cautious, I would come down to true TRT and just maybe a tiny bit of GH on your cruises. So, but that's, if I were to change anything.
For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.